Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, this is BestInSlot, and for the very first time since Jurassic World Evolution was released, we're going to do a species profile analysis. This takes me back. I was but a sweet summer child. Anyway, Frontier have released a profile for one of the upcoming hybrids, Ankylodocus, and here it is.
Extracting hybrid profile. Ankylodocus. An InGen hybrid, combining the defensive capabilities of the Ankylosaurus and the larger size of the Diplodocus.
First things first, I am never going to be okay with that pronunciation. It hurts me to my core. Ankylodocus is the opposite of how I will pronounce it. I'm sorry. Ankylodocus to me just sounds so much better. Each to their own. But we're not off to a great start. Still, it's a brand new species profile. Now, before we get into our real first look at the dinosaur itself, I want to focus on this little did you know screen, because it spurred quite a lot of discussion. The Ankylodocus, and I nearly said Ankylodocus there, is a hybridization of Ankylosaurus and Diplodocus. This enormous creature has plated spikes, a clubbed tail, and no known natural predators. And it's that last little bit that's got people excited. For those out of the loop, the only dinosaur in Jurassic World Evolution that can take down sauropods at the moment is the Indominus Rex. And given this sauropod in particular has a huge array of spikes on its back, a club tail and some pokey out mouth thingies, it's surely more equipped than most to rebut an attack from the Indominus Rex. Now, whether the Indo would fall under the boundaries of a natural predator is another discussion. Is any of the dinosaurs in Jurassic World natural, really? But if so, maybe we're about to get our very first sauropod that is actually capable of fighting back when being hunted, rather than dying to an automatic animation like the others do and like the hadrosaurs do. I can't be the only one who wants to see that club tail crack some hybrid skulls, can I? Onto the dinosaur itself. Look. It's still derpy. I said this after the reveal trailer and I'll say it again now. Doubly so now that we have a good look at its weird derpy face and its weird derpy eyes. It really sticks out to me compared to the other evolution dinosaurs, and even compared to the other DLC dinosaurs. It's got a bizarre mid-90s puppet look to it, like from really cheap TV, and I really can't quite get past it. And to be absolutely honest with you folks, I really don't like it. This is probably the only dinosaur other than the Maiasaura that I've looked at the design and thought, I really don't like this dinosaur. This may well be my least liked dinosaur design in the entirety of Evolution, just based on this footage so far. The body itself, if we ignore the weird head and the eyes, is a marked improvement of course, with the elongated spines of the Diplodocus being a natural extension of the original form, and the presence of that big hefty club at the end of the long tail. Given our Diplodocus already had an excessively long tail, you can imagine that thing is going to whip around with some extreme force, hopefully into the head of an Indominus Rex. I do think the spikes have been taken a little bit too far. It's a little bit too forced, edgy Jurassic World the game for me. And also, it doesn't scream Ankylosaurus at all. I'd have loved to see the actual backplating from an Ankylosaurus integrated into the dinosaur somehow, along with those spine spikes. Maybe that wasn't possible to do well, I could understand that, but I don't really see what this humongous array of spikes really has to do with the Ankylosaurus either. It looks like they've taken the ones from the Diplodocus and just slapped them everywhere basically. Really, it's more like a Diplodocus-Porcupine hybrid. I'd be totally on board with that, but let's call a spade, or in this case a Porcupodocus. The dinosaur does look a little better when brought into the actual game, and that soft, warm lighting of Isla Muerta, however. It still looks much more like a fantasy creature to me than an actual dinosaur, but I will try to stop going on about it, I swear. Eventually. We do get some snippets of information, including a sense of the size of the hybrid here. Now, given it's a hybrid, it was difficult to know for sure whether it would be scaled up or down or maintain the Diplodocus size from the basal dinosaurs. After all, it would make some amount of sense for it to be about halfway between the Ankylosaurus and the Diplodocus. Based on the position of the dinosaur's body relative to the tall herbivore feeder, however, it very much looks to me like it matches the Diplodocus in size. We're not about to get any mini sauropods quite yet, and it's definitely not much bigger. Its head is still craning its head up to hit the bottom rung of that feeder. We also learn, rather importantly actually, that the Ankylodocus can live with other members of its own kind peacefully. Now, I personally always believed this would be the case, and that the 3 new hybrids wouldn't follow the same rules as the Indos, because there's no film to base them off. But it's nice to have confirmation that they'll indeed be able to live together socially, and not have to remain the moody, solitary creatures like the Indorex and Raptor were. Hopefully the same rule applies for the Stegoceratops, and even more optimistically perhaps, the Spinoraptor. It's also, this is a little speculative, it's also briefly worth noting the colour scheme of the shot. Like I say, very speculative this, but we know that the 2 islands we're going to play on for this upcoming DLC are Isla Muerta and Isla Tucano, and we know that the default lighting of Isla Muerta is the soft orange sunset of both this clip and the next clip. Given that Isla Muerta comes before Tucano in the natural chain of islands, are we possibly seeing the Ankylodocus as the introductory hybrid we'll get on that first map, the potentially less popular and less difficult to control one compared to the big, bulky Stegoceratops and the pretty terrifying looking Spinoraptor? Just something to consider. The next shot is largely the same, but if you look close enough you'll see a pair of another brand new DLC dinosaur in the background, the Olorotitan. Now they're a little far away for us to get too much detail, but what we can see is that the one on the right is walking, however briefly, on all 4s. People are hyping this up to be quite a big deal on the subreddit and in a few other places, but I'd be very surprised if the Oloro has its own animation sets, and I suspect this one is just doing the usual quadrupedal grazing that the others do, and that they will predominantly walk on 2 feet, as the other hadrosaurs do too. For what it's worth as well, as somebody from Frontier has commented on the subreddit and said that they will swap between 2 and 4 feet as need be, like the other hadrosaurs do. Similarly, for what it's worth, my own preliminary research and paper reading on my part don't really suggest that the Olorotitan was predominantly walking around on 4 feet, that it was quadrupedal, and that it likely moved usually bipedally, except when grazing and the like. I haven't really seen any conclusive evidence that suggests otherwise. As a further note on the physiology of this dinosaur, people are still remarking that they expect it to be this abnormally large hadrosaur, much bigger than the ones we already have. But the most recent legitimate paper on the matter puts it at about Parasaurolophus size, with an extremely long neck, yes, but I think there were some issues in the past due to fused vertebrae and stuff, and people have overestimated the size of the Olorotitan by about 50%, putting it about 12 feet rather than the potentially more realistic 8 feet long or so. Meters, not feet, but you get my point. Sorry Ankylodocus, you got a little bit neglected there, when what the Olorotitan also tells us is that not only is the Ankylodocus okay sharing an exhibit with members of its own species, as in it has a social bar of some description, but it's also okay sharing with others as well, so the social bar also goes past 2, at least, into a population bar as well. This is not an overly aggressive hybrid like the Indos were, but instead a more typical, derpy mid-90s puppet that will slot into the existing dinosaur roster with a little bit more ease, if I had to wager a guess. That's a better idea, in my opinion, and I don't think having each hybrid having to live alone and being a massive pain in the ass to look after would really lend itself to enjoyable gameplay, so hopefully this is indeed a correct assumption. Anywho, that's all for now folks. I'm really hoping we get one of these for each of the upcoming dinosaurs. After all, there's only 5 full days left until the DLC comes out next Tuesday, and there's 4 more dinosaurs to look at. If they take Sunday off, because it's God's day, maybe we'll be lucky enough to get a species profile every single day until then. I've missed doing these little videos. It's a nice throwback to how I got introduced to so many of you at home for the first time. And that said, if you enjoyed this video, please do help me out and throw it a like, it really does help a lot. And remember to subscribe and ring the little bell icon to be kept up to date for the most inclusive Jurassic World Evolution content basically anywhere, if we're honest. Thanks for joining me, cheers, much love, and as always, bye bye. A little shout out at the end. This video and others like it would not be possible at all without the support of you guys watching me at home, and also everyone on this Patreon page right here who supported me in the last month. If you want to help out as well, you can do so at patreon.com/bestinslot. Every little really helps. Cheers.